song's actually called Inglorious, I Don't Know More. It was written by Jasper. It was hard to hear the words, so just go on YouTube and watch it. So I don't know who's actually chairing the questions, or if oh, you are? Okay, good. So, but I said no hecklers. So you might have to pass the mic.
Okay. Let's give a round of applause to Dr. Pamela Palmater. So I'll be moderating the Q&A, the question and answer. Maybe very briefly, if I could ask the people to maybe be aware of other people when you ask your questions. We do have time limit, and I hope a lot of you do have questions. So go ahead. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, hold it. I'm going to have to set some rules. Okay, number one. Okay, who else? Number 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, I'll bring the mic over. If I could ask the people to maybe introduce themselves as well. Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anita, and my question is, what is our next step as far as we're not, we can't take donations because we're a non-profit organization. So what is our next step? Take them to court, get petitions to take to the Governor General, to the PM, to the UN. What is our next step?
Okay, that's a really good question because there's lots of next steps for all different people in all different scenarios. So for example, Frog Lake and Mikisew Cree have challenged Bill C-45 by a judicial review. So that's the step that they've taken as First Nations, and some other First Nations across the country are going to join them as interveners or in terms of financial support. That's one thing. For I Don't Know More, what's our next step, right? There's dancing, there's round dances and all of those things. Well, the work has to also come back to the First Nation level too. So how is it that we're strategizing? How are we working together with leadership to say, okay, what are our priorities as Samson Cree? Because it might be very different from what's the priority of Yoruba First Nation. And what are the priorities for this community, for Treaty 6 in general, and then work that stuff out. Have those conversations so that while we're doing I Don't Know More, we're still taking action, very strategic political action. And that's the kind of stuff, just in my opinion, we don't share with the public. So I'm working with First Nations all across the country on legal strategies, political strategies, and other things that we share with those First Nation communities, but I don't go on CBC and say, hey, guess what we're doing next? I'm shutting down mine. Kind of takes the whole surprise out of it. Not to say that that's what I'm doing, but could be. But those kinds of things. Declarations. I mean, there's just so many things that we could be doing. I know Treaty 7 issued a declaration saying none of these laws that you're purporting to pass are going to apply in our territory. They're not the only ones doing it. So there's different ways you can assert your sovereignty and jurisdiction. It's overwhelming, the issues that we have to deal with, but we have to deal with them, so we may as well just start knocking them off one at a time.
Let's stand right here.
Stand on the X.
My name is Brittany, and my question is, has anybody tried to silence you yet? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, lots of people. Because even if you have a movement that's not political, inherently politics will get involved. So people are always saying in the media, oh, she just wants to be famous. Oh, she wants to be rich. I can't figure out how to get rich yet, but oh, she wants to be rich, or oh, she just wants to be national chief, but those, I mean, those, sometimes they even come from our people, but those are illnesses that live in our people, based on insecurity, fear, jealousy, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge about why people are doing this to begin with, right? Why would someone give up every night and weekend and time with their family and holidays for that, right? You do it for the cause, and there's a lot of haters out there, but here's how I see the movement. On Twitter and Facebook and social media, or even talking in the media, you can focus on that and what do you call it, retweet it and repost it, but all that does is just create more misunderstanding and fear and lack of trust. I prefer to focus on, here's how we're going forward, here's positive messages, how do we inspire? Because all of us have an obligation to inspire our kids or inspire our friends to action. And it's not going to be very inspiring if all I'm doing is talking about Senator Brazo, right? So it's, for the most part, I try to take all the criticism, because criticism is good. Did you think about this, or why didn't you mention this, or you should have done this? All that, the criticism is good. The hating isn't good. So that hatred part, I don't even pay attention to. And there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes politically that people don't ever see, where they try to silence you. You just keep resisting, right? Because our ancestors suffered far worse. If all I have to deal with is a couple of politicians trying to bug me, ugh, that's nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Darren, Kevin, and gentleman over there.
Good morning. Thanks for your presentation. It was awesome. Just a couple of things. Has Idle No More looked at the international support that they can get from people in crisis? Because I think we're in crisis now. I think we need support. I think we need to look even in our own country as to people that'll reach out to us, that'll see our state and how the fairness is what we're looking for. Number two, I totally agree with Idle No More. I'm just a little worried about all the blockades we do, because when you see on media, you see, we'll say the Western society, where you have kids waiting that want to go home. That kids are just like our kids. Why would we put them through that? Is there another way we can do that without even having to disturb anybody else's life? I mean, it's, everybody's got to live. I can see where you do it for maybe a couple hours. That's fine. But when you do the whole day, kind of, like I said, I'm not nothing against Idle No More. But we have to live with these people. There's no way in the world we're going to get rid of them out of our country and make it our country again. No way. Hi.
Thanks, Billy.
So those two questions around the issue of blockades and international support. Very early on, before the mainstream media was even picking up Idle No More and covered it the way they did, the people that were contacting us and the media that I was doing was in Venezuela, Cuba, Hawaii, London, England, Germany, Ukraine, the United States. Like, countries all over the world were saying, what? This is actually happening in Canada? There's actually First Nations without running water in Canada? I mean, you think Canadians don't have all the facts? Whoa, the international community has been so snowed by Canada, it's not even funny. So we have been, and we continue to reach out to the international community, and we're working on our political support. So what I've done, I've been invited to Washington several times, done the media and stuff down there, is spoken to Americans about how this business that Harper's doing actually impacts Americans just as much as it impacts Canadians. And when you tell them that, and say, hey, guess what? When he changes the Navigable Waters Act, we're going to be polluting your waters, Americans don't really like that. So the kinds of support that we're getting, it's also increasing in terms of political support. And that's We're putting an awful lot of effort. And when I say we, there's all different people in Idle No More. It's not a big organization, so I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody in Idle No More. I'm working with a certain group that's trying to work on the international thing. I'm glad you asked the blockade question, because this is a conversation I think we need to start having and thinking about in a very different way. To my mind, First Nations have been enduring a federal and provincial blockade of our economic development for decades. They prevent us with physical force from fishing, hunting, accessing our own mines and minerals, from accessing our lands. That's the real blockade that's going on here. And it's not just the physical, it's the legal, because they've designed a whole system of permits and leases and licenses to keep us out of that front. We might get a few beads and trinkets to try to keep us quiet, but that's the real blockade. So when I show up to Matthias Colomb Cree Nation with the chief and all of his community members, and we stop Hud Bay from mining in their traditional territory for a day, what am I doing? Am I blockading them? No, I'm not. I'm stopping the blockade against us. And we're doing it in a way that's peaceful and cultural, with all of our ceremony and elders and children there. And yes, those workers don't get to go into that mine for a day, and they don't get to come out for a day. And that's really inconvenient. But I compare that small temporary inconvenience to the number of children we lose every day to Child and Family Services. We have the highest suicide rate in the world, and every time we lose a child, that's more than just a little inconvenient to me. That's unacceptable. Our lives are on the line. We have less of a lifespan by up to 20 years than Canadians. So if they have to be inconvenienced for a little bit, be a little bit late for their appointments, that's a small price to pay to open their eyes and start ending the blockade against our economy.
So, a couple of you guys, what's your name? Darwin O'Connor. I listened to Willie Littlechild, the treaty talks we had here. I really enjoyed that. The full bands here. I'm glad we're recognized at the United Nations. And this question I've been wanting to ask you, as I see this movement take shape. I've noticed that our leadership throughout our chiefs were divided. The strategy the government took is always to divide us. And when they do that, I know that they have us. And I know that the chiefs want something, they want to start something. But I think one of the bases we do have is that we are recognized at the United Nations. And how come that our leaderships cannot start thinking in that terms? Because Canada, the government, they have this duty for us treaty people. See, and it seems like they're fighting, but there's already a foundation in place to protect our treaties. We are a recognized people, and we're still fighting amongst each other. Time and time again, yes, I talk to the leaderships when they have their all-chiefs conference. I send questions, I leave them. Many years I've asked them to introduce treaties into our schools. Why is it now that these people are just doing it, recently? It's us people, the grassroots people, that see these things take place, yet we want to be like a white man. take their monies. We want to be well off. See, this is what we're fighting for. Now this movement, I like this because there's no money involved. Just my voice and everybody else